Let's go. Okay. So just a little bit of warm up. What is the opposite of -4, or the negative of -4? Yeah, just 4. And -21 plus 3? -18, which is kind of like if you owe $21 and you pay off $3, you still owe 18. What about -3/4 plus 1/4? Yeah, -2/4, which reduces to 1/2. And that's one of those things you'll not forget if you always check your answer with somebody. So remember, how you get scored is a point for every step. If you don't do that last step of reducing, it does count against you. It's a given, and it's a question you never have to ask any math teacher your whole life. And that question is, do I have to reduce? The answer has always been yes. No teacher ever says, no, just stop the problem. You're almost there, but you don't have to finish. They always say, reduce all the way. Do not change it to decimal. Okay, so if you have a fraction problem, given as a fraction, problem given as a fraction, your answer should be as a fraction, unless it, of course, it comes out to like 2/1, and then it's just going to be 2. But don't change it to 0.5 without some clear reason. Okay, next we have -1/3 minus 1. What does that equal? So a little reminder. We need to have a common denominator, which would be 3. So 3 over what? Sorry, I get it right. What over 3 equals 1? 3. You can substitute out. 1 is the same as 3 divided by 3. So now we can finish the problem. I should get ready. One over 1. There we go. Minus 3 over. So that will equal -4. And you can leave your answer just like that. Do not change it to a mixed number. In general, with algebra, you never use mixed numbers. Yeah, you just don't use it. So improper or proper. Improper just means the top number is bigger. Proper fraction is when the top number is smaller. It doesn't really make a difference as long as there's just a number on top and bottom and nothing else. Okay, good. And let's move on just a few more. Now, majority of your problems, majority of your work today, homework is going to be, how do you solve this problem? How do you solve what plus 2 equals 3? That's it, right? But it's going to be a majority of fractions and decimals. So your thinking is going to be focused on making sure you know how to do this. And throughout the year, there's going to be a lot of fractions. It's something you need to be good at in high school. It's no longer, well, fractions are hard, I can't do them. That may be in the 5th grade, yes, when you first learn them, but high school, nobody can get by saying, well, that 5th grade math is too hard for me. Maybe it was at the time, but if you give it another go around, you might find like, oh yeah, that's a lot easier than I remember. It was just hard when I first tried to learn it, possibly, but now I can do it. It's just 2 steps. So let's do a lot of practice today so that when you get to your homework, it won't be an issue. So here we go. Write those down. Give it a try, and let's see how it goes. So, common denominator for 15 and 3, what's this? 15. Yeah, 15. So I'm just going to rewrite the first fraction as is. But the second one needs to be over 15, right? Which means we have to multiply by 5 to get there. So multiply by 5 on the top. -22 minus 5. -27 over 50. And all done? Is that finished? Nope, gotta reduce it, right? So if you just stopped at -27, gotta reduce it. Let's divide top and bottom by what goes into both of those? 3, right? So we get -9 over. Number 2. Common denominator is 10. So they have, once again, the first fraction staying the same. Plus what over 10? What's 1's half of 2, so what's half of 10? 5. But it's the same as just multiplying 5 over 5. When we add those together, we get 8 over 10, which equals 4. 4. 1/2 minus 2. You prefer 2 over 1. So common denominator is 2. It's like we're multiplying top and bottom by 2. So 4 over 2 is the same as 2 over 1. So 1 minus 4 equals negative 3 over 2. Which is the same as negative 1/2. There we go. And lastly, what should I multiply the second fraction by here? 5. 5 on the top will give you 25. 5 on the bottom will give 20. And we have 73 minus 25 is what? 48 over 20. Final answer? 12 over 5. Divide top and bottom by 4. Divisible by 4. 12 over 5. There we go. So a little trip down memory lane back in elementary school, 5th grade. We used to have recess and all that fun stuff. We started learning this, so we want to bring it back. Hope you remember it if you've forgotten. And like most of you are on top of it. That's okay if you're not. You have plenty of time. There are calculators that are about $10 that do fractions, which you're allowed to use on every homework, test, quiz, and final in this class. So if you think this is going to prevent you from passing algebra, save your nickels and dimes, go buy one of those $10 calculators that has fractions on it, and then you don't have to worry about it the rest of your life. It's a little faster if you know how to do fractions, but calculator is good too, just to make sure. And it's perfectly okay to have. Let's see here. So on your homework, you're going to see it in the form of this. Something like x plus a third equals -1. And then you guys know this pattern from your homework last night. What will give me 0? If I have 1/3, what gives me 0 if I add, subtract? Yeah, and you came up with -1/3. That was your homework last night. But with equations, you have to do it to both sides. It's kind of like a bench press weights. You've seen that. There's weights on both sides. You have to take off the same amount on both sides, add the same amount on both sides. Otherwise, this thing's lopsided and you're lifting more with one arm than the other. Okay? You have to use the same number on both sides, just one time on both sides. These cancel out, which means equals 0. That's what cancel out means. And format-wise, you're going to bring down an x exactly below where it is. You'll bring down an equal sign exactly below where it is. Right? And then you'll do the arithmetic and from the previous here. It's the warm-up. From the warm-up, we already have what the answer is from here. There's the work. You do not need to show me this stuff. Multiplying top and bottom by 2 and top and bottom by 5. You don't have to show that to me. You can do this on another piece of paper and just, have the answer in line with your equations. Okay, so or just do it off to the side. Okay, but do not do the, okay, this is 3 over 3, and don't mess with the original problem. Just do it off to the side, so it doesn't interfere. We can still be able to read all your algebra. And of course, box your answer. Later on, we'll be doing checks for our equations where you plug it back in. You don't have to do this until next week when we start doing two steps. But you plug it back in and show, well, does the left side equal the right side? That's a check. And you go through this process and say, oh yeah, -3/3, does that equal -1? And if you get the same thing on both sides, then yes, it is the correct answer. So you can verify to see if it's right or wrong that way. Okay, let's see here. Let's move on to decimals. Okay, same thing as before. Write those down, give it a shot. If you wrote them down in the fractions and you didn't get them all right and you didn't ask anybody, this time maybe realize, well, maybe I should be talking and trying to get things right, not just waiting. Okay, so go ahead and give that a try. And we'll go over them in a minute. Let's go. So first one, we have -1 plus 0.5. You might not have to do any sort of algorithm to get this answer. Sometimes you just think of, well, if I owe $1 and I pay off 50 cents, well, it makes sense I still owe 50 cents. That's fine if you can just go straight to -0.05. Okay. Otherwise, you'd have to do 1.0 minus 0.5 and end up getting 0.5. And remembering that, well, because of the signs, it's a negative. Question?
Do you have to put 0 in front of it, or can you just put like that?
We need to have the 0 there, yeah. All right, not too bad. Here, just kind of straightforward. We can do this, 3 minus 3, 8 minus 6, decimal point, bring it down, and 6 minus 2. That's the more straightforward. And of course, that answer would just simplify to simply 4.2. Drop any zeros that you don't need here. Other than that, I think we're pretty good. 0.4, 3.1. If you prefer, you can rewrite this as 4.5 minus 3.2. That's the same thing, right? These two are identical. It's okay to take a number and change the order with adding and subtracting. That's called commutative property. So the order doesn't matter. 2 plus 8 is 8 plus 2. It's the same thing. So we can do 1.3. Okay. Of course, these will be in the form of equations. So when you're doing this, it will look more like x equals or something like that. So let's look at a few of those now and then get you guys started. Okay, try this again. Make sure you do the step just for the simplifying of the two. Okay. Then, just like you did on last night's homework, you find the opposite, whatever side has a variable, look at that number. How do you get that number to 0? Okay, if we have +4, we need to get to -4. Do that to both sides. Put that nice long line right there. Cross these off. Why can we cross those off? Equals 0, right? That's what the whole homework, the front side of the homework last night was about equaling 0. So that means cancel out. So we are crossing these off because it equals 0. We don't have to write +0 or anything. It's just to get rid of it. Okay? And then, of course, 21 minus 4 is 17. And you notice how the equal signs, the variables, things I did not work with at all in the problem are all lined up pretty much vertically, easy to follow. And then you can stop right there. If you'd like to go one more step and rewrite it as v equals 17, you know, just switch the sides around. You could do that if you like, but I'm not requiring that. Let's go down something like number 9. Look on the side with the variable. What number is this right here? What number is this? Well, what's this fraction? We're not changing anything decimals. Very close, not 1/4. It's -1/4. So how do we get to 0? Add 1/4. And this is the algebra part. It's recognizing, we know 1/4 and negative 1/4 cancel out, but we have to be able to look at this and say, that's negative 1/4. It's also x minus 1/4, but the number is negative 1/4. So I need to add. I need to get to 0. If I subtract 1/4, here I'll have negative 2/4, and that won't work. So recognizing and just looking at the problem and saying, well, this is negative 1/4, can be a big step. All right, b equals 0. Go straight down with the variable x, straight down with the equal sign, and it's okay if there's a space between them. You know, they don't have to be right next to each other. Okay. It's just easier to see, glancing at somebody's work, that yeah, these canceled out and equals 0. If you wrote the x right below that, you're kind of like, well, I had 1/4, and how did that turn into x? Oh, okay, it came from over here. And these equations are going to get much bigger down the road. Right? They're going to get really, really big. So not a big deal here. You can kind of see, well, the x came from right there. How come I have to write it right here and not here? It's so when we get to the big stuff, it's easier to follow, and you won't get lost as easily. Negative 3 plus 1. Negative 2/4. Is that the final answer?
No.
Nope. Just like we did on the warm-ups, you go one more step, right, as negative 1/2. And that you can circle, box, highlight as your final answer. Capiche? Any others on the front? Trouble you, bother you, want me to do? Give you a little confidence? Answer any questions? All right. So we're clear about the format. I want to see you crossing off the additive inverses that equal 0. I want to see that. I want to see this here on every single problem. I would prefer you write your fractions exactly how they're written on the paper. So if you see them written as, 3/4, don't write it like this, 3/4. Don't write it like this, 3/4. So the way you're given the question is exactly the way they want you to write it. They don't want you to change it to your special way, and there's very good reasons for this. It's not just my way because I like it. But once again, when we get to these giant fractions, we can't be having these sideways slashes and things like that. It gets confusing. Okay, so we're trying to make good habits now, so later on you don't have to worry about it catching up. Okay. Anything else? Let's look at the back. Anything on the back we need to talk about? Let's give you a second. Anything you want me to go over on the back? Yeah. 16. Yeah. Okay, good. 16 has a mixed number in there. We threw a little bit of that in there. So to convert this, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So we have 5/2, which is negative. First step would be rewrite that way. Then we can add 5/2 on both sides. Right? Side of the variable, this is negative 5/2. Add to both sides. These equal 0, so they cancel out. Bring the variable straight down. Equal sign straight down. Negative 3/2 plus 5/2, or 5 minus 3. 2/2, which simplifies to 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. There you have it. Good. Just looking at 18 below it, what's the first step on number 18 according to what I showed you on number 1? What's the first step on number 18 according to number 1? Yeah. Rewrite the question. Yep, very good. With a plus. Before you add and subtract to both sides, because we have the double negative, rewrite the question with a positive. Now you know you need to subtract 0.4 on both sides. All right. One last thing. Do you notice anything similar between what we did in the lesson as far as the numbers and what we're doing now in the homework? Sometimes making those connections isn't always clear. But let's just look at the kind of problems we were doing before. It'll let me bring it up. Come on. And do you see any connection with some of these? 73 over 20 minus 5/4. Do you see anything with 73 over 20 on the homework? And a 5/4? Look at your paper.
Yeah.
Which number? Number 15. So I've given you kind of like the beginnings of a lot of it, just so we looked at the arithmetic. So use your notes. Have your notes out in front of you as you're doing your homework, because they will help you. I'm trying to reinforce that. Don't just take notes, write things down, put them away, and now let's do homework. You should have them both out, and you say, wait a minute, I already did this on the notes. I can just use what I've already done and apply it to what I'm doing now. Don't have to do it double time, okay? So make sure you use your notes with your homework. And have this done when you walk in the door tomorrow, okay? And I'll probably end up checking both yesterday's and today's tomorrow on Friday.